Hello, Michelle here from The Woven. I'm going to show you a very cool stitch, let's call it a sexy stitch, called Waffle Check. This is a stitch that is using texture and it's using colour work, and I love it. This is what would be considered the front of the knitting. It's got this sort of 3D embossed look, and this is what would be considered the back of the knitting, which has all these floats and slips, which it's just, I think both sides are really cool. The pattern looks tricky dicky, but it is not. In fact, you are essentially working garter stitch, so that's when you're knitting every stitch, except for every couple of rows we're going to slip some stitches without knitting them. And what makes the texture is what we do with our working yarn, whether it's in the front or whether it's in the back when we slip the stitch. And what is the front and what is the back, I hear you say? Well, let me show you. So I have just worked 2 straight rows of knitting in my colour 1, which is pineapple, and I'm about to work my pattern in my colour 2, which is silver, and the pattern calls for me to knit 1 and slip 1 with the yarn in the front. This is the front when we're knitting. It's the side you're looking at. The back, when we're knitting, is the side you're not looking at. So every time you turn your knitting over, that front and back value changes. Front and back is not right side, wrong side. Front and back is the one you're looking at and the one you're not. Cool? Cool. Right, we're off. What's cool about this pattern, we can colour work just 2 rows per colour, is that there's nothing required to be done to travel your colours up the side. You just simply pick up the next colour and start working. So we're going to knit 1 stitch just like we normally do, and the next stitch needs to be slipped, but the yarn needs to be in the front, so we move it to the front as if we're going to purl. Slip the stitch across from needle to needle, left needle to right needle. Don't need to do anything to it other than we're moving it across, I guess, by just lifting that loop there like we are going to purl. And then the wool goes back, the yarn goes back, and we knit the next stitch. We move it to the front, we slip, and back, knit. Front, slip, and back, knit. Front, slip, and back, knit. Pretty cool. And we do that the whole way across. And it puts the travels, the slips all on this side. Now the pattern does call for me to knit the entire row, but for the sake of this tutorial I'm going to pretend that this is my row, and I'm now turning over to work the next row of my pattern back. So that just takes a little bit of us pretending. Now the pattern calls for me to knit 1 and slip 1 with my yarn in the back. Back now being the side we can't see. What's cool about that is that the working yarn's already there, so when I finish knitting that first stitch, I don't need to travel it. It's already at the back. So I'm just hooking that one across and knitting. Hook, knit. Keep your slip stitches, keep your working yarn loops loose. You don't want to pucker your yarn by pulling tight. Slip, knit, slip, knit. How easy is that? And can you see now, looking at that every second stitch that didn't get knit for 2 rows is stretched up. And that's what creates this super cool effect here. Continuing on with the pattern, we turn our knitting back over, and now the pattern calls for me to work 2 straight rows of knitting with my colour 1, and like the silver just before, I don't need to do anything, I just pick it up and away I go, just knitting every stitch. Boomtown. And that, my friends, is how we make a very sexy waffle stitch. Hope that helps. Happy knitting!